So we have created something in the previous tutorial that we animated the properties of an object that we created in Unity. So how do we bring in assets from outside that have animation clips attached to them, and then make sure that Unity plays those animations as we expect Unity to play those animations? So the fastest way to showcase this is to go onto Mixamo. Is to go onto Mixamo and to choose a character skin and also some sort of animation, right? And so for some reason this is not playing back right now, and it's angry at me. It doesn't want to play back. I'm not quite sure what's going on, but this should be like the hop option, but it doesn't really matter. So so you could select one of these motions, apply it to whatever skin, and hit download, right? So if I was to say, maybe it's just that I don't have this, right? If I was to select hip hop dancing, there we go, right? So now the the character is doing a hip hop dancing move, and if you've used this before, you know that you can have all sorts of different changes, right? You can make them go faster and slower, right? So this person can be really hustling, or they can go, really slow, right? If depending on the model, you can adjust arm space and you can trim it off. So you can say however many frames of this animation you want. If you want the full cycle, right, this goes a little bit further. There's, a little bit more motion there at the ends. Or you could just use a small portion of this, which, right, and you see that it hops then, right? It's going to hop back and forth. But whatever the case, and you can also upload a model that you've made and set all your things, and it will rig it for you, and then you can download based on that. So it's up to you. But one of the things to note when you do this, if you select a pack, you can get all those animations at once. But if you download an individual one, it's going to download the model and the animation track and everything twice, right? It'll do it once for, say, hip hop dancing. And if I go to Joyful Jump or whatever, it'll make that transition. So you can use whatever. We're only, again, going to be looking at 2 different animations just to keep this quick and simple. Okay, so download these things. And once you've downloaded them, if you pop over to Unity, we're going to need to import those assets, right? So I'm going to right click. I'm going to go down to Import New Asset, and I'm going to jump to my Downloads folder, or wherever these things got dropped in. You could also just set your download to download them into whatever folder in your Unity project you want. But I'm going to select those 2. I'm going to click Import. And when I do that, I get these 2 characters with little arrows next to their unit. And if I'm going to click on Rumba Dance just because it's the last one and it'll make it easier to see. Right, so what I have here now is I have several things. I have if I select this, I've got this model, rig, animation, and materials, right, are my tabs in here. And this is on this top level object, right? This is my rig, right? This is the hips. This is sort of like my root, right? This is the body material, which did not transfer at all. Which is fine. We could go in and apply our own materials to this later on, right? And then this is our mesh. So this is actually all of the pixels of the all the pixels, all the vertices, etc., indices, etc., that are on our model. And finally, we have our animation clip. Now note that the name of this animation clip is mixamo.com or _com, and if I click on Joyful Jump as well, the animation clip name is identical. So this is problematic, and we're going to look at how to edit those things here in a minute. But first, let's just go ahead and set one thing that we want to do. So first, right, these automatically, when we create them, are set to loop in time, right? So basically, when it gets to the end of the clip, it should play it back again, and it should play it back again and again and again. Right. And so to do that here, what we need to do is we need to select our object, and we're going to be applying both animation clips to Joyful Jump here in a little bit. So if I go to Joyful Jump and I select the animation tab, and then I come down here to loop time. I can check mark that, and now it'll loop time over and over again, and so he'll just jump continuously. Now the other thing I can do in this section is you'll see that I have this one clip, which is accurate, right? If there were more clips attached to this, it would tell me all of those additional clips. And then right here with whatever clip I have selected here, I can change the name. So I'm going to go ahead and just call this jump. And once I do that, in order for any of these settings to take effect, I need to click the apply button down here. Now there's a bunch of other stuff here that we're not going to worry about at this point. We're just doing the basics. So I have changed that, so it should have adjusted the name here, but for some reason it did not. So I'm going to go ahead and try this again. So I'm going to go to here. It did loop it, but for some reason it did not adjust the time, and I'm not quite sure why. So, or adjust the name. So I'm going to hit jump. And hit tab. There we go. So it's popped out of that. It may be that I wasn't out of that setting. So just hitting tab jumps me down to this next thing. Just don't type any numbers or you're going to change the start position of this. So if I click apply now, there we go. Now it's set it. Right, so that's something that's gotten me several times is I think I'm setting it here, but because I still have my cursor in this, it doesn't actually set it even when I hit apply. Right, so now if I go to this other clip, right, where it's rumba dancing, and I go ahead and just click on rumba dancing, I'd like to rename this now as well, just so it's easier when I go to my animator to set this up. So I'm going to select this, and I'm going to change this to rumba. And then I'm going to hit tab, so I'm out of that field, and then I'm going to click apply. All right, and so now this animation clip is also called rumba. Okay, so I've made those changes. So let's drag joyful jump into our scene. And maybe we can place joyful jump somewhere near our object. I just put it on top of the object for the time being so that I could actually get it to be about, the same place in the scene, right? Now, right, there's no gravity on this object at all, so he can jump off space like he's doing right now. All right, so I've pulled this object into the scene, and if I select joyful jump, you'll see that I'm missing a few things here. Right, so I do have my skinned mesh, and right, I've got my hips, and these are actually all of my different. This is my skeleton in here, so that's animated and has all sorts of keyframes on it, or that will have all sorts of keyframes on it once I apply my animation clip. So the question is, where do I put the animator component? And the answer to that is that I want it to be on the top level of whatever object I've pulled in. So I'm going to go ahead and click Add Component, and I'm going to type an animator. I don't need an animation, right? I want the animator, and I don't have an animator controller yet. So I'm going to need to create an animator controller in order to control the animation of this. So in empty space here in my anims folder, I'm going to right click, I'm going to go to create, and I'm going to go down to animator controller. And I'm going to go ahead and name this racer, because that's the character, the object name there. And now I have this animator controller. And so I need to go back to joyful jump, which is a silly name for an object. I could rename this racer as well, which would probably make life easier. So let's go ahead and do that. So I've renamed it racer. And now I'm going to go ahead and drop this racer controller into my controller field here. So now I've got the controller ready, and now I just need to add animations. Now, one of the cool things about Animator is as long as the object has similar properties, you can apply any animation clip to it. So if I wanted to, right, I've got this racer. I believe I can just go ahead, and I may be wrong, and I may find out really soon that I'm wrong, but I can go ahead and bring in these other states. Now, the way I have this window set up is not really going to work out for me because I'm not going to be able to easily drag things forward and backward, right? But I'm just going to grab left, right, and see if I can pop over to this. Yeah, see, when I hover over this, it doesn't let me switch. So what I need to do is I need to pull this out of here and actually I'm just going to bring it over to the side so I can, right, access both of these things at once. All right, so what I'm going to do is I am in the racer object. If I drag left, right in here, right, I can just drop this clip in here and it may actually just work. We'll see. I might get an error and we'll find out, but I think it may just move this object back and forth. Yeah, right. So, right, it's even though I did this animated clip on another object, right, I can just as easily apply it here. And the same goes for the animation clips we actually want on this, right? So I'm going to go ahead and pause this. I'm going to delete that out of there because what I really want to do is just to drag jump in here. All right, so I'm going to drag jump in, and now when I run this, right, my character jumps, and he jumps over and over and over again. Now, if for some reason it's not looping, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to select in your assets folder the joyful jump asset, and you're going to go to animation and make sure that loop time is checkmarked. Right? If it's not checkmarked, you're not going to get any looping, and it's easy to forget to click apply or whatever, and so that the loop doesn't happen. It's something I've done 1,000 times. Okay, so now we've already done this once, so let's go ahead and do this a second time. So we know that, right, we should be able to apply rumba to this as well, so let's go ahead and drag this in. And before we do all our transitions and everything, let's just make this the default. So I'm going to right click and say set as default state so we can test it and make sure it does indeed work. Okay, and sure enough, it works. However, it only played through one time. So that means that I need to go, something to note, if you click on the animation clip in the animator while this is playing, it will play that animation, right? It will not play the animation that, right, this one that's not connected, but it'll play your default animation. So I'm going to pause this and I'm going to go back to, I'm going to select the rumba object. I'm going to go to animation and yeah, see loop time is not checkmarked, so I need to check it and then click apply. Okay, and so now when I play this, it should play back continuously. Okay, so we get one rumba move, we get another, great. This character is just rumbaing the night away. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and stop this. And then let's go ahead and connect these. So let's say rumba is our default state, and then we want to press a button and have that person jump for joy. So I'm going to say make transition. I'm going to come up to jump. I'm going to right click on jump, make transition, and come back down to rumba. Right? So we can go back and forth. And very similarly, we're going to create a parameter. We're going to name it exactly the same thing so that we can use the flow graph we've already created when we apply it to this character. And we've done all of that work, and we don't even have to change the variable name because this parameter, we can just do the same thing. So, oops, not int. I don't know if there's a quick way to remove something that you've created, but whatever. I have accidentally created that. So let's go ahead and go to float, not int, and we're going to name this next. And we want it to be false by default. And on this first transition, we're going to say has exit time for the time being, and then we'll uncheck it later. But all I need to do for this is click on this add to list and change this to next and say the condition should be true for this transition. Oh, oops, I'm going the wrong way. Sorry. Rumba's the one we want to start with, and so we want this to be true going this direction. So let's go ahead and say next true, right? So if when I press the key down, I should jump for joy. And then when I let the key up, I should go back to rumba, right? So I'm just going to, if I have the key down, I'm going to keep jumping until it's not true. So I'm going to go ahead and select this other transition and make this false. Okay. So let's go ahead and see what happens. Oh, so we're not quite done yet, right? We now it just won't transition. So let's go ahead and go back to our racer object, and let's go ahead and add a flow graph. So I'm just going to type in flow or flow machine, select that, and then rather than new, I'm just going to go to all of these, and I'm going to grab animation graph. And if I click on, I think I have this selected, so it should have updated, and it should look. Let's just say edit graph. There we go. Right, so you can see that this graph is exactly the same, and let's see if it works. Now, what that means though as well is when I press the spacebar down, both of these objects should change what they're doing. Okay, so my character is rumba dancing, press the spacebar down, and he jumps, and I let the spacebar up, and he starts rumba dancing again. Okay, and then the same thing goes with, right, that capsule is animating as well. All right, so we have successfully created animations that are controlled by a little bit of Bolt in order to do things. Now, so right, you can imagine all the parameters you can adjust on an object. Again, right, you can animate materials based on input. With this, there's all sorts of different things that different ways we can use these animations in our games, and it solves a lot of problems. Now, there is a point when you start having like you could potentially have a huge number of different states, right? Because you need, if you imagine like all the different potential animation states you need for one character, you'd have like, idle, walk, run, jump. Maybe you have an attack, like imagine all the different potential attack moves you could have, or maybe there's a motion of the character picking something up, or maybe they need to tie their shoes or something, right? So you can imagine there's a lot of things, and it can get really, really complex. But this tutorial just shows you the basics of how to do these things. And there are a great number of tutorials about how to do more complex animations that are also available online.